Good morning, dear respected teacher, dear Sangha, and dear friends. Let us come back to ourselves and enjoy these beautiful moments together. This is indeed a legendary moment. Let us invite Thich to sit with us, to breathe with us. And as we sit, as we breathe, we'll notice Thich is with us. Thich is in us in every breath that we take. And with that in mind, we will feel Thich is not only in us, but Thich is surrounding us. Not only Thich is around us, but Thich is in every one of us. As we listen to three sounds, the bell, just to feel the energy of mindfulness, the collective energy of the Sangha, to embrace, to embody that energy. So let us come back to ourselves and enjoy three sounds, the bell, together. Good morning, dear Sangha. Again, this is such a beautiful moment that we are together. Today is the 8th of January in the year 2023. And we are together at the White Elephant Meditation Hall at Plum Village, Thai Plum Village International Practice Center. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here with us for the last few days. The last few days we have come together to commemorate the 1 year passing away of our teacher. In the last few days, we have practiced together. We do walking meditation, sitting meditation, eating meditation. Collectively, we have generated quite a lot of peaceful energy, mindfulness energy, and love and energy. And that's the best gift that we can offer to Thich, to the three Jews. More importantly, that we are here to build brotherhood and sisterhood as a Sangha. In the last few days, we have done that. And today, January the 8th, is the day, is marked the day when we remember. It's the day to remember Thai, our teacher, an extraordinary person who lived in an ordinary world as an ordinary person, who has given so much to the world. And he has done quite a lot. But best of all of the things that he has done, the best one is Sangha building. And thanks to his offering, now throughout the world, we have many, many mindfulness practice centers. And there's so many lay Sangha as well as monastic Sangha around the world practicing together. And we are together on the path, the joyful path, the path leading to healing and transformation. And I'm so grateful that you are here at this very moment. As for me personally, it's a little bit emotional to be here on this day and to be able to share with you the practices as well as my memories with our teacher. And before I go on, I would like to ask you a question. How many of us have met Thai physically in person? Would you please raise your hand? About 30% of us. How many of us have met Thai through books and videos online? Quite many of us. Wonderful. This morning, one young man, right after the breakfast, he approached me and he shared with me. He says, I came a long way, all the way from China. And I have the conditions to be here at Thai Plum Village Center, especially to be part of this special day. He says, I have never met Thai physically, in person, but listening to his talk, to online video, reading his books, I feel so connected. And coming back here, feel like coming home. And he says, well, you look very familiar. I think I have seen you. Maybe 2 videos. Someone who walking behind Thai or sitting in the back of Thai. And it's so strange to see you here. So can you share with me about your experiences with Thai, especially after he passed away? So after listening to him I paused, I said, I will share with you and the world later. And this is the later moment. Dear friends, as I said, today is the day when we come together to remember Thich. Not only Thich, but when we're speaking of Thich as an example, we can think of our loved one. And our loved one here means Thich, means our grandparents, our parents, our partners, and so on. Those who have passed away, who have come to our life and have left such a beautiful footprints in our hearts. So the topic for the talks this morning is learning how to live when our loved one die. And that is to overcome grief and loss. When we live with someone for so long, we're so close to that person. And through the times that we have had together, there's so many things that we have connected. We bond. We listen to each other. We understand each other. And suddenly, that person is gone. It is hard. It's difficult. And so when grief and loss is so big, how do we bear with it? How do we overcome? How do we live with such a great loss, with such a great grief? Myself personally is that when Thich passed away, I wasn't there. A few months before that, I was with him. But then I learned that my father, my biological father, blood father, is also dying. So I went back home to be with my father. Because I knew Thich has so many attendants, so many students can be there for him. So I went back to be with my father. So on the day that when he passed away, I wasn't there. But I can share with you the moment that when Thich had a stroke, when I was there with him. It was very difficult for most of us. And yes, we've been practicing for some times. But when the moment comes, if we're not ready, it can become very emotional, internally. Storms can be formed from within. I remember after a few nights of his stroke, he was admitted into a big hospital in Bordeaux, southeast of France. And that night, in the emergency room, I was in the room with him, with another attendant. And one of his lungs collapsed. So the doctor says, Thich has only 6 more hours. If he could not make it, then it's gone. It's done. So they had to bring in a machine to help the other lung to breathe. And that night was very difficult. This is the fact, all of these years we've been learning about dealing with life and death. And this is the first time witnessing someone so dearly to me right in front of my eyes are coping for the last moment. So it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I remember that night my mind was very scattered. It was very scattered. And I knew immediately I have to do something with it. If I don't do something with it, then I will continue to be blown by that emotion. In this case, it's grief. So I was overwhelmed. When we overwhelmed, sao xem? Đầu Quy ơi, xem fix screen lại giùm được không? Sorry, please bear with us. Life is impermanent. We'll get into that in just a moment. And that's including technicality. So let us just recognize that mark of impermanence and smile with it. So let us listen to the ones I was about as my brother come up and fix the screen. Hình như là gì nè, xin nhớ là click đầu đây nè, click lên này.
Tại vì bữa hôm đang sẽ đi chỉnh lại cái màn hình này này, cho nên bây giờ nó
Không vậy. So please just ignore the screen and go. Let him fix it. And so that night was a very, very difficult night for me. I was so overwhelmed by griefs and emotion. As I said earlier, when someone is so close to us, so dearly, then suddenly something happened. And that someone is part of our life. It's our loved one. And when that person is no longer here, physically, you feel, we feel, that part of us is no longer here. So the loss, the grief, are quite immense. So the emotions, griefs, kept coming back in my head. I was spinning that night in the emergency room, knowing that it was only a few hours maybe Thich would not be able to make it. But then finally, I shut all of the doors, all of the senses, just to be able to come back to myself. When I came back to myself, I suddenly heard the echo voice from within. From within. And it was so clearly that night in the hospital, in the emergency room. And the echo voice like this: "Don't be so sad, Ananda. Tathagata has often reminded you that all dharmas are impermanent. With life, there is death. With arising, there is dissolving. With coming together, there is separation. How can there be life without death? How can there be life How can there be arising without dissolving? How can coming together without separation? Dear Ananda, you have cared for Tathagata for so many years with all your heart. You have devoted your efforts in helping Tathagata. And I'm so grateful for that. Your merit is great. But Ananda, you can go much farther than this. If you can make a little bit more efforts coming back to yourself, then you'll be able to transcend the sorrow and attain the freedom. And that would make Tathagata the most happy. And that night, that echo voice was so clear in my head. Suddenly, it was such like a big bell knocking me off. Knocking me off. And I think all of these years I've been reading and listening to old Phap White Cloud. You probably have heard of that story. When the Buddha passed away, Ananda was crying, beating his chest. My beloved one, my dear teacher, is passing away. And I have not attained the fruit of the practice. I have not reached the highest level of the practice. My teacher, who's the one who loved me dearly, and now he passed away, who will take care of me? Who will teach me? And that is one of the passages in the old Phap White Cloud that strike me the most. And I think that is how it stuck in my head. And that moment when I was confronting the reality, and that's from the star consciousness, is coming back up again that night. And I honestly can tell you, that night, was the night forever I will never forget. And I'm so grateful to that night. That's the night that has started to change my life. The way how I live, the way how I practice, way how I carry myself, especially the way how I carry my teacher, my Sangha, to go forward. được ạ.
Con thưa thầy, mình phải dùng, tại vì cái màn hình này á, bữa hôm đăng CD khi mà họ chỉnh lại á, thì cái màn hình trên đây á, nó cắt bỏ cái phần này và nó để bên đây, cho nên bây giờ là nó có cái problem là nó với cái màn hình này, cho nên nếu mình dùng á, thì con xin mời thầy có thể mình không mở full screen, mở cái này như vậy thì màn hình nó mất hết cái này nào, cho nên còn để như vậy.
Nó sẽ không có thấy mấy cái điều này. Không sao đâu. So please bear with me. You don't have to look at the screen. My face is actually more choiceful than the screen. So you can just look at me without the screen. So coming back, griefs can be very overwhelming. If we do not know grief is like a tree experiencing a storm. And we don't know how to come back and be with our emotion, take care of our emotion, we will be blown away by the storms. And when we experience grief, loss, it is very difficult for us to sit still. Sit still. We become very agitated. We become very anxious. We become despair. So thanks to the practice of breathing, walking, turning inward, it helps us to calm ourselves down. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Having a loved one is experienced the last moment of their life. That itself is a trauma, is a suffering. But if we do not know how to manage the emotion, in this case, the grief, the despair, the loss, then it's become the second arrow. The despair, the griefs, the loss can be even worse than the grief itself. Pain, the loss, the grief is there. It is inevitable. But the suffering itself is optional. So that night, after I experienced the pain, the loss, I decided, this is it. This is enough. I need to come back and take care of myself. So I decided not to be the victim of the suffering anymore. And to do that, we need to learn how to come back to ourselves, listen to ourselves, listen to our emotion, listen to our thoughts, our despair, and so on, and to be with that. And if we don't do that, we will become so overwhelmed by those emotions. So the question is, how do we take care of our strong emotions? How do we manage our strong emotions? In this case, the loss, the despair. For the last few days we are here, we learned the practice of stopping. When emotion comes and becomes so strong, we need to learn how to go home to ourselves. To ourselves. We follow our breathing, and our breath will anchor us in this very, very present moment so that we won't be carried away by emotions, by thoughts, by despair, and so on. There are some people, especially the young people, who do not know the art of stopping, how to come back to themselves. Therefore, they let the emotions overwhelm them. So as a result, some of them have decided to end their life. Pai says, why do we have to end our life? Because just want an emotion. So the practice here is that when we experience an emotion, we recognize it, we come back and be with our breathing, our emotion. Otherwise, we just float away by the wind. And we learn how to calm our painful feelings. And how do we do that? What I did that night was I learned to recognize my griefs. Breathing in, I'm aware of my griefs. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I know grief is here. Breathing out, I know it is not me. I'm accepting grief is there, but I'm not harmonizing myself with griefs. That's the difference. Breathing in, I embrace this unpleasant feeling. Breathing out, I know this feeling will pass. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I know that I'm strong enough to take care of this grief, to take care of this emotion. And to be able to do that, we need to have mindfulness. And my dear friends, to be able to recognize, to be able to do this, to follow this step, we have to start it now. We don't wait until something happens in order for us to practice this. If we wait until something happens in order to practice, it might be too late. Because it's very difficult for us to recognize the emotion at that moment when we don't have enough energy of mindfulness. So that is why the practice begins now. Living in the West during the winter, the weather can be very cold and wet. Those people, especially the farmers, who live in the remote area, they have to chop woods, spare woods during the summer, so that when the winter comes, they have woods to make fire to keep them warm. The same way for us as practitioners, we have to start practice now. When we practice, gradually the practice will become a part of our life, and something will become very natural. And when something happens, coming back to ourselves, it can be something that's very natural without making so much effort. Maybe when we experience emotion, our friends, our Dharma friends, our family may not be there with us to remind us to come back ourselves. But when we have the practice, we embody the energy of mindfulness, it's easy for us to come back to ourselves. So what I learned that night, I learned how to recognize my emotion by calling their true names. This is my despair. This is my worry. And I know they're part of the emotions. Sometimes we are so overwhelmed by emotion. Sometimes it's difficult to be able to tell what emotion that is. Sometimes we might have mixed feeling, mixed emotion. But if we be able to identify what that is, it's easy for us to calm it. That's what we call calling it by two names. In the monastery, we train ourselves is that when emotion comes, we can think of the bamboos outside. Bamboo, when the winds come, it sways. Especially the last few days you experience, you have seen it. It's very windy for the last few days. When the winds come, the bamboo sway. When the wind goes away, the bamboo stop, steadfast. It's exactly the same way with our emotions. Feeling comes, feeling goes. So just let it come, let it go. Let it flows, let it flows. And to be able to flow, we need to learn how to anchor our breath. Because if we don't know how to anchor, just like the boat, if the boat does not have the anchor, and the boat easily be swept by the wave. After that night, I learned how to nurture myself with some of the positive elements. I went outside, I did walking meditation. When I back in the room with Thich, I spoke with him. I spoke with him all of the beautiful things that we had done together, all of the pilgrimage, all of the teaching tour that we had done together. So I continued to talk with him, not only try to waking him up, but at the same time, I watered a pot of seeds in me, all of the good things that we did together. But the best part that helped me the most is the practice taking refuge in the Mother Earth. And the way I take refuge in the Mother Earth is that when I walk, try to be very mindful with my steps. And every night, coming back from hospital, back to the room, I do touching the earth. Touching the earth, the feel Thich is still in me. And I allow all of the negative energies within me to flow down to the Mother Earth. And for me, I found it was very, very healing. And one of the things that I found of taking care of our strong emotion was very helpful to me was the gift of forgiveness. And I share with you this story. And this is something that's maybe outside of the story of Thich. A few years ago, quite a while, I was leading a meeting, and during that meeting, the heat became very strong, was very strong. And one of the participants was very harsh with words, and I felt insulted. And when I felt insulted, and I felt the energy of anger arising in me. And as soon as the energy of anger arising in me, the thought was using the inviter, the bell inviter, and throws it at him. You see, anger sometimes can manifest very violence in a very violent forms. Outside, we might look very nice, very dear, like a deer, very naive. But inside each one of us, there is a tiger, there's a lion. It's always ready to be sore. So the practice is to be able to recognize when that lion or the tiger is calling out. And luckily, I'll be able to recognize that moment. And I put down the inviter. After the meeting, 10 minutes later, I walk over to that person. I join my palm. I express my apology. I apologize to that person. Yes, during these few minutes, what happened in my head, that person had no idea. He did not know that I was about to commit a violent act with him, even just a thought. But only me who knew. And what I learned that day was to be able, when we have the courage to come and to apologize, that apology itself is a healing for us. It's a healing for us. And I could see very clearly, and I felt very, very clear As soon as I apologized to my brother, I felt calmer. My anger subsided. And I discovered, wow, the gift of forgiveness. When you forgive someone, when you apologize to someone, it is at the same time you apologize to yourself. You forgive yourself. But when you are angry, when you become despair, when you become anxious, who has the big loss first? Ourselves. And when we're not at the big loss of ourselves, that means we don't know how to take care of ourselves. When we don't know how to take care of ourselves, that means we're not taking care of our teacher, our parents, our ancestors well. So that is an act of kindness. Kindness to ourselves, kindness to others. So now talking about a cloud never dies. How to be able to learn how to recognize our loved one in us. We learned about the practice of stopping, how to calm our emotions. Now we have to learn how to look deeply, to see our loved one in all the forms. Many of us, we learned, we understand the teaching of impermanence very, very well. But when it comes to life, it's hard to accept it. We always expect our loved ones to be there with us forever. Even ourselves. We think that we are young and we will be young forever. If we still have that thought, think again. I remember there were days I was a follower of Thich, always in the back of him as a young monk. And here I am, sitting here, talking with you. Time flies. And thanks to impermanence, we learn to cherish what we have. I learned to cherish my Sangha. I learned to cherish my brothers and my sisters. Even though that I don't talk with them so much, it's my human nature is quiet. But that doesn't mean the communication is not there. I share with some of my brothers, even though that I lay sitting in my room doing reading at night, and I could hear someone was talking out loud across the monk residence, drinking tea, sharing, talking. But part of me, I also feel I'm there with them. Physically, I'm not there with them, but emotionally, I feel I'm there with them. I feel connected. So that means I cherish the present. We also learned about non-self. And we learned that self is made of elements. That is not a self. For example, if we look at this dandelion, we learn from the teaching that I have taught us so many times. The dandelion is made from the soil, which is the earth, the air, the water, and so on, for the dandelions to be possible. If we remove all of those elements out, then dandelion is no longer a dandelion. So when we have a chance to witness someone is losing, and that's including ourselves, it's an opportunity for us to practice, to be able to witness self, letting go of self. And I honestly can tell you, last year alone, I have lost 2 people so dearly to me. First was my spiritual teacher, which is Thich. Secondly, is my own biological father, who passed away 2 days right after Thich passed away. And before that, my mom passed away. And when I was with my mom, I held her hand to the last breath that she took. And it was a miracle for me to be able to have the opportunity to witness her passing away. And when we have the opportunity to confront life and death, it is an opportunity for us to see life and death taking place in ourselves. And when someone passes away so peacefully, it gives you the peace of mind. Or vice versa. So witnessing someone passing away, be with someone is dying, is an opportunity for us to practice deeply with impermanence and with non-self. Life happens for a reason. And if we happen to be there, then it is a condition for us to learn. In the circle, dandelion life circle, it's very difficult to tell. You can see the circle where the dandelion life begins. From the point of view, we always think from the seed, and the seed slowly sprout and then become the flowers. The flowers go around and then they will wither and it will disappear, and then the seed will be flying away, and then it will soon become dandelions again. That's the circle of life. I remember there was one time in Upper Hamlet, I was walking with Thich and another attendant, and when we approached the bell tower in Upper Hamlet, and that time the dandelion flowers on the Upper Hamlet field was all withered. All withered. And Thich looked at the dandelion, the dry dandelion. Thich says to the other attendant, "My dear son, which one do you think comes first? The first flower dandelions or this dry dandelions?" Being with the Zen master for so long, I knew the best way to do is not to respond. You just keep quiet. And if you don't know the answer, you just smile. But my younger brother, he didn't know. So he responded right away. He says, I think this one came first time. The first flower came first in order for the dry flower to arrive. And I was like, So they walk away. So coming back to the dandelion life circle, this is how we learn that makes life possible. And this is the circle of life. And when we understand this, it's easier for us to accept when griefs and loss are there. How do we continue our beloved one? In this case, our teacher. Thich is above and beyond his physical body. And as we know, he transmitted to us many, many things. Thoughts, speeches, and action. All of the things that we have learned for the last few days, they just don't drop off the sky. Invented. Invention, creativity came from Thich's wisdom and experience, transmitted to us. So that night in the hospital, I aspired to myself. I made a vow to myself. I learned how to look Thich above and beyond his physical formation, which is his body. How am I going to continue him with all of the thoughts, good thoughts, all the things that has taught me? all of the beautiful lovely speeches that he has taught us, and all of the actions that he has done. And it's become part of my life. So dear friends, when we love someone so dearly, we need to understand, we need to learn what they have transmitted to us, and more importantly, what their dreams are, what their wishes are. And if we know what their dreams and their wishes are, we can be able to live up with their dreams and hopes. And when we will be able to do that, we see they are dynamically living within ourselves. And I will get to that in just a moment. What I learned after that is that how I am going to continue type of falling giant plum tree to the transmissions that he has given me, thoughts, speeches, and action. And I learned there are 5 methods to continue a fallen tree that most farmers, especially fruit farmers, they know how to continue a fallen tree. First, they culture the seed. Secondly, they nurse the roots so that the fallen tree can grow again. Third, they culture the branches, or they cut the branches. Sometimes a tree has a lot of branches. In order for the trees to bear fruits, to grow well, we have to learn how to trim the branches. We'll get into that in a moment. 4, we need to know, the farmer know the technique, how to do the bud wrapping on the other tree. Okay, this tree is dying, part of it is still alive, I will wrap it on the other tree. Nowadays you see a lot of flowers. There was one time my sister who had a pear tree growing in the back of her yard. And she's been growing it for 5 or 7 years, and every year it bears a lot of fruits. And these are all Western pear. One day, a beautiful day, summer day, somehow she looked at the root at the bottom of the tree. She saw a different kind of pear. It's no longer Western pear, but it's also Asian pear. You know what that means, right? What that means, that tree was bud wrapping when it was young. It was young. So that happened. So the 5th, when the trees do not bear any fruit, what do the farmer do? They smoked the trees so that the tree can bear fruit. There are actually 9 methods, but today, because of limited time, I can only go over 5 with you. Okay? So what I learned from these 5 methods, how to continue a fallen tree, now as a practitioner, whether we are monastics or we are lay members, as a practitioner, how do we culture the seeds. Thầy have transmitted to us the seeds of love, seed of compassion, seed of understanding. So our practice is how to nourish, how to preserve the bodhicitta, which is the mind of love. When our loved one pass away, if we don't practice accordingly, we can be easily become despair. And when we become despair, our bodhicitta, mind of love, can be subsided. Because that moment, that time, we were overwhelmed by griefs and loss. Secondly, as a practitioner, to nourish the roots so they can grow again, we need to learn how to nourish and deepen the daily practice, basic practices, which is the breathing, listening to the bell, sitting, walking, and eating. There is no other way to nourish the practice, to deepen the practice, by not investing our times and energy into the daily basic practices. Do the daily basic practices. It helps us to become more grounded, to be more comfortable. As we do that, become very natural. It becomes part of life. As for me now, my brother and sister says, how come I see you always present at the Sangha, sitting, eating, and walking? What is your strategy? What is your secret to be able to do that? I said it's very simple. It has become part of my life. In the morning when I get up, if I'm not able to sit still, enjoy a cup of tea, sit, enjoy my breathing, for some time, I feel that day is missing something. To be able to sit with the Sangha, to be able to walk with the Sangha, to be able to eat with the Sangha is a privilege. And when we come to sit and we eat and we walk like that, it's not only for us, but we do it for Sangha. We do it for Thai. But best of all, when we think that we do it for someone, actually we do it for ourselves. And when everything has become so natural, it becomes part of your life, and there's no efforts to make it. It becomes enjoyment. And to be able to arrive at that, it takes some time. It takes some discipline to begin with. Yeah. It takes some disciplines to begin with. Now, the branches, culture the branches. Some of us, when we come to the practice, we might have brought some of our good talents, good habit energy, good skill. But some of us might have brought some bad habit energy. And what those are is for you to reflect what those are. Okay? And as the practitioner, in order for the practice to grow, we need to learn how to recognize and transform our habit energy. It might take time, but we can do it slowly but surely. All it takes is the faith in the practice. And that is something that we can do. Bird rafting on the other tree. First for me, I learned how to take refuge in the Sangha. My physical teacher body is no longer here. But I can always take refuge in my elder brothers and my elder sisters and my Sangha. Seeing Sister Wee Nghiêm, Sister Dong Nghiêm, Dong Nghiêm, Sister Thư Nghiêm, Brother Phap Nghiêm, Brother Phap Kama here, I'm so grateful. There's some things in them that I see my teacher, Thai, is still here. Not only my elder brothers, my elder sister, but every time that I see my younger brother, my sister, they eat mindfully, they walk mindfully, they talk lovingly. Then I also learn to recognize the presence of my teacher. And when I see that, my heart is filled with appreciation. Last but not least, the trees, Thai often taught us, trees, flowers are there to make life more beautiful. They offer fruit, they offer flowers. So if they don't, they have to find a way how to make their trees to bloom, to bear fruit. It may sound a little violent, but sometimes in life, some of us need a little push. We need a little push, a little motivation. So if you find, the practice where I do it all the time, I walk, I breathe, I sit every day, and it becomes so boring to me. So when it's so boring, that means you don't really enjoy the practice. When you don't enjoy the practice, then you lose the interest of it. When you lose the interest of it, then the thoughts, the scary thoughts might arise, might come. Maybe this practice doesn't work for me. This life may not be suitable for me. This is something for us to reflect. So if we experience that in ourselves, it is the time for us to begin anew with ourselves, a bodhicitta. And that's what I did in the hospital that night. I being anew with Thai, within myself. I will learn how to invest my time more wisely in the practice within myself. Last, within these 5 methods, we might have a very good intention to overcome obstacles, to overcome difficulties. And in this case, it may be our habit energies. But to be able to overcome habit energy, good intention itself might not be enough. It requires aspiration. We make a vow. We make an aspiration. Until that aspirations, we embody the energy of that vow. And that vow reminded us every time we fall. My dear friends, we don't have a lot of time, so I like to go a little bit quicker than I expected, so please forgive me. So through those practices, we will experience nothing is lost. You know, every day when I wash my face, sitting at the sink, standing in front of the mirror at the sink, I look at my face and I see my eyes. And I see, this is the eyes of my mother that I inherit from her. And this is very true scientifically. Each one of us, we inherit 23 pairs chromosomes from our parents. And within those 23 chromosomes, the last pair is the chromosome X and Y that will determine our sex, whether you're male or female. And each within these 23 chromosomes, pairs of chromosomes, it has the genes of our parents, our ancestors in it. So when I look at my eyes, I see Mom is there. I'll be able to remember her wish and her dreams, some of the things she hasn't done. And I will continue. This morning when I got up, I know how I should continue my mom. And when I see that Mom is with me, then the longing to be able to touch her, the feel her dissipated. So it is possible to touch someone, to feel someone who's no longer physically with us. To your insight. You can touch them spiritually, emotionally, or mentally. All it takes is the insight, the wisdom. Every day, not only looking at my eyes, looking at my hands, I have a lot of skin pigments, which I received it from my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. Every time I look at my hands, I feel my grandma is here with me. So in that spirit, wherever I go, I feel they're with me. So nothing is lost. For the time I was with Thich, Thich enjoys lying in the hammock a lot. That's one way for him to relax, believe it or not. Without my intention, somehow I also pick up that habit from Thich. So now I also enjoy lying in a hammock. And every time I lie down in a hammock, I feel like, Thich is also here with me. And every time I say something, I do something in according to Thich's teaching, and I also feel his presence. His presence. And this is the same with our loved one. We can reflect to see what are the things that our loved one transmitted to us, both positively and negatively. Some of the negatives, some of the negativities that they transmitted to us, maybe they have not had a chance to practice this transform. And it's up to us to recognize and transform them. Thich says, if we don't transform, then what happens? We will transmit. Very simple. That's the formula. You don't transform, you transmit. Deepest kind of relief is the relief that when you have the insight that your loved one is in there, is there with you, inside of you. There is a poem that Thich wrote before he passed away. I'm sorry, a long time ago. Just before he passed away. And the poem called Oneness. In Vietnamese, tiếng Việt gọi là nhất như. The moment I die, I will try to come back to you. As quickly as possible, I promise it will not take it long. Isn't it true? I'm already with you. As I die each moment, I come back to you. In every moment, just look, feel my presence. If you want to cry, please cry. And know that I will cry with you. The tears you shed will heal us both. Your tears are mine. The earth I dressed this morning transcends history. Spring and winter are both present in the moment. The young leaf and the dead leaf are really one. My feet touch deathlessness, and my feet are yours. Walk with me now. Let us enter the dimension of oneness and see the cherry tree blossom in winter. Why should we talk about that? I don't need to die to be back with you. This poem has a lot of insight in it. And he prepared for his departure. So when I read this poem, I was very touched and I was very moved. And we learned that the deepest kind of relief is the relief, the kind of figure out, discovering that person is still in you. And that is the insight. And when we have the insight, we learn how to live for our loved one and for those who have lost, who have died. But when we're able to do that, we touch the wonders of life. Now, as everywhere I go, I learn how to walk with Thai's feet. I learn how to look at Thai's eyes. Maybe that my eyes are not perfectly as compassionate as he is yet. But that is the direction that I'm heading. I'm learning how to look. I'm learning how to walk with Thai's feet, look with his eyes. And we do that, we'll be able to touch the wonders of life. Last but not least, gratitude for life. You ask yourself, we ask ourselves, what is it that I'm gratitude for, that I'm grateful for? Some of the things my loved one left behind for me. What is it from that person that I'm so grateful for? Best of all, first, that I'm grateful that I'm still alive. That I'm grateful that we are all still here. I'm grateful that we continue to be able to carry Thai forward. And the four things that I am truly, truly grateful of Thai. Thank you, Thai, for giving birth to me in this spiritual life. I'm turning 48 now, this year. And I became a monk when I was 32. The last 15 years has been the most meaningful and joyful years of my life. Even life is just as simple. So I'm so grateful. Every time I experience joys, happiness in my daily life, I reply to a good thought of appreciating Thai for giving birth to me, for guiding me how to dwell in the present moment so that I don't be carried by afflictions, suffering from the past. Because if I don't know how to dwell in the present moment, every time thoughts, affliction, suffering from the past come up, then I will continue to perpetuate my suffering. So thanks to the practice that he has taught us, and I learned how to dwell in the present moment by coming back to myself, coming back to myself. I also thank Thai for teaching me how to live happily and peacefully in the here and the now. Without the teaching, without the practice, I cannot be who I am today. To be here, sitting here with you. Last but not least, offering me the ideal of serving with all my heart. As I shared earlier about when we love someone, we have to think of their dreams and wishes. And Thai's dreams, like last night, during the processions of the lotus lanterns, we were sitting at the Bodhi tree. We listened to my apology this morning. We listened to Thai's letter written to the young monastics or the young people. His dream is to be Sangha building, to be able to lead retreats for many, many people to participate. They learn the practices to be able to transform their suffering into joys and peace. I honestly, frankly, I can tell you, I can share with you, sitting in front of the audience or standing in front of the audience, talking publicly, is not my interest. And it's not my expertise either. I used to not like talking in front of public. But after that night in the hospital, as I shared with you earlier, I learned how to look deeply, put beyond what I like and I don't like, or what my teacher dreams and hopes are. So I put myself, I invested my time into something that perhaps I can continue my teacher. That is what I'm here. And to leading the retreats inside the monastery, outside the monastery, going leading retreat with the Sangha for the last few years. After Thich was sick, I done it with my siblings, with my elders, with my youngers. And I discover the gift of joy, the gift of service. When I see people like you come to the monastery, come participate in the retreat, and you experience transformation, that itself is a reward. When that reward is there, then I know Thich is there. I know he's happy. Last but not least, I would like to leave with you, we learn how to connect with life. Sometimes that we're so stuck with something is really gone, it's really happened, and we cannot just get out of it. When the loss of someone so near to you, it becomes the ocean of suffering. And the ocean of suffering can be very immense. And through these practices that we learned already, we learn how to let go. Now that we learn how to let go, now we have to learn how to connect with life, to relive, to become more alive. Nature is always there for us. Mother Earth is always there for us. Trees, forests are always there for us if we learn how to take refuge in them. Sorry, I cannot go too much in depth with this. And when we are really present, we can feel, we can see the wonders of life is manifesting right in front of us. This morning when we walk to the hall from our residence to here, Lumpi Pitaya and I will discover there's such a beautiful flowers that both he and I have never seen before. So we acknowledge the beauty of it, how wonderful it is. This is the wonders of life. Sometimes life can be very busy. Sometimes we'll be overwhelmed by despair, by loss, and we unintentionally neglecting the wonders of life. what is manifesting right in front of us. And that manifestation, the one that's applied, can be our children, can be our loved ones, those who are still there. Because we get stuck with the one that we love. Learn how to recognize our loved one present. So I learned how to recognize Thai in each one of us. As I shared earlier, when we see someone walk mindfully, eat mindfully, sit beautifully, then we know Thai is there. Thai is there with us. And that is something is very clear. And as a community, when we come together, we practice together like this, we have more chance to be able to recognize that than we do it ourselves at home. Last but not least, learns how to come back to life. Life is so dynamic. It's so wonderful. And if we don't live at this moment, then we have no other moments to live. And to be able to come back to this moment, we need the lamp of mindfulness. The lamp of mindfulness. Each one of us has it, Thai says. Each one has that lamp of mindfulness. And the oil of that mindfulness is made of what? Of our mindful breathing, mindful walking, mindful sitting, mindful eating. And when the oil is there, then of course, the light is lit. So keep the torch bright. And as soon as we can keep, as long as we can keep the torch, the lamp of mindfulness alive, then you feel Thai, our loved one, our ancestor are there with us. So having said that, I would like to wrap up the conclusion for the sharings today. In summary, we have to learn how to recognize our griefs, our despairs. Grief and despair and loss are real. They are there. From the historical dimension, from the ordinary world, grief is there, is real. And we have to learn how to recognize and be with it. Secondly, we need to learn how to take care of our strong emotions that are caused by griefs and loss. Third, we do better. We learn how to see that the cloud never dies. Our loved one is still there in us. And how do we continue our loved ones is up to us. Last but not least, reconnecting ourselves with life. When we reconnecting ourselves with life, we see life is so wonderful. And we only have these moments to live. Thai, our loved one, may not physically be with us, but if we learn how to recognize their presence, then we will see Thai and our loved ones are always there with us. Thank you so much for your practice of deep listening, and let us come back to ourselves and listen to three sounds about whatever that I just shared with you for the last an hour and 20 minutes. Just let it go. Just let it go. I'm sure everything that I have said, I have planted the seed in your stock consciousness already. But what I share with you, it wasn't mine. It's from my teacher, our teacher. Yeah. All of the beautiful words, the teaching, the practice, it transmits to us. So today, it's just a reminder. It's a way for us to review and refresh ourselves. And we can promise to ourselves, today is the day to remember Thai. Today is the day for me to renew my practice. If I have not done practice accordingly to what Thai has taught me, today is the day for me to renew, to do it better, going forward. And if we're able to do that, then we're definitely worth it to be Thai students, to be Thai disciple. May you all be well. May you all be happy and peace.